Well, technical difficulty. There we go. Are we working now? Are we live? We are live. We're running a little bit late. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic whenever they're watching this. Um, yeah, what's there to yammer on about? Well, whatever you guys are working on. Tonight's all about y'all. If y'all have something you're working on, you got questions, maybe I'll have answers. Hopefully, I'll have answers. I'm running a little bit late because I was working on the tune on Whitey, the F 150. Big issue with yours truly, and one cranium and one sphincter uh, on, on shift scheduling. So, anyway, I created my own problem, if I'm being totally honest. Um, and I got a little bit too aggressive on shift scheduling, and I decided that that absolutely sucked. But I missed a detail in data logging, decided to go back and change some things up, and it ended up working out really well. That truck is really, 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 really good now. And it's when we're talking about tuning and in particular transmission tuning for modern vehicles, obviously we're talking about an automatic transmission, but we're primarily talking about shift scheduling. It is 2024 after all, and manufacturers have really got it down pat. Nitro Crew is first in. With the ball guy in the shade, the right cadence gets the flex. But the thing is that getting the transmission tune right has a lot more to do with shift scheduling than it does with a lot of other things. Now, granted, you start adding camshafts, different torque converters, and all of that. That's one thing. But if you're talking about a car that is fairly stock, that maybe you threw a supercharger on it, you're playing around with shift scheduling, which is just a fart sniffing way of saying what, when, and how it shifts. Then that's the main core of it. And what you don't ever want to do is to have it be too aggressive under partial throttle. Matter of fact, everybody is guilty of this. Everybody wants it to be a bit more aggressive, but you don't really know where to stop that a bit more, right? And so I had taken that a little bit too far with the tune on the F-150. And so I had to dial back the shift scheduling, and now it's really good. And again, this has nothing to do with wide open throttle stuff. Well, wide open throttle is the easiest thing to tune. It's everything under the curve that matters, though, with transmission tunings for drivability. And that's what as I was setting this thing up, I was wrapping that up. So at any rate, that's what I'm up to. Now, what other things have I done in the tune? Not a whole lot. The funny thing about the Ford operating system is that it is constantly trying to throw timing. Where the Mopar system and most others that you would be familiar with, they're always looking for knock to remove timing. The Ford is always throwing timing at it until it hears something it thinks is knock, and then it starts to dial back a little bit. But you'll always see it in the data log with it just throwing timing at it like crazy. And when you there's a little bit of a learned strategy to that I'm discovering. And as it learns, initially it's throwing every ounce of timing that it possibly can. And then it sorts itself out, finds its right base maps, and then everything is cool. You won't see it throwing a ton of timing at it, but the number will be the same. And it's kind of funny because what makes it it's funny, but it's not funny. So as it goes through that process, you've got to be aware of the fact that it's going to change a little bit as the vehicle is learning the parameters and the tuning and everything else. So on one drive cycle, you might see it just throwing the hell out of timing at it. And then on the next drive cycle, you'll see it actually see knock retard, and you might see a little bit of short-term knock retard being pulled. But you'll also notice that those timing figures really haven't changed too much. That's the reason why. Anyway, welcome to Ford Live. So that's what I've been working on. And like I said, the truck is really good now. Partial throttle is right where it needs to be. So in saying that, what are you guys working on right now? What are you guys thinking about purchasing right now? Are you guys thinking about anything new yet? Are you guys in the market for something maybe that you didn't think that you might be in the market for because of all the weird stuff going on with Stellantis and with the new Charger and with some of the issues that they've been running into already with the Hurricane engines in the truck? So it's a little bit early to start calling, but there's already a couple of flies in the ointment with the Hurricane 6. Without overplaying that card, I'll just say that engine failures have been an issue. I want to say there were some overheating issues that were reported. It should be just a Google away. I don't think it's very widespread, but the thing just hit the market. And this is right on the coattails of the Toyota recall on their V6 turbo setup because of machine flash in the engine. And the problems that they're having with those things is that it's got metal debris in the blocks, and they're kind of eating themselves alive. And so that's a bit of a problem. So, it's not, in the Toyota's case, it's not a fault of the engine per se. It's a fault of QC. In the case of the Hurricane 6, though, it might be a far worse situation. But let me catch up with you guys. Sovereign Nitro beat you to it. Line is in. Good evening, fellas. Sovereign saying, so the Ford Tune is acting like an overactive thyroid. It's kind of funny in a way, sort of. And again, the way that the Ford Tune works is that you have, in this truck, it's 18 base maps, 18 timing tables, plus, that are active. And then it has, I think, the same corresponding number of MBT tables, which is maximum brake torque tables, that it will reference, and it will kind of blend those together. And the MBT tables, my understanding is that are based off of the inferred octane that the flex fuel system is seeing. So it's kind of funny as it blends those things together and gets its life sorted out. It's pretty interesting, and you'll sit kind of learning through its own thing. And it's like, well, the snozberries taste like snozberries. You'll notice that when the ethanol content will bounce around. It'll say, like if you're running, say half and half, it's 50%. It'll say, it's 47%. Oh, it's 54%. It's within a range. Those ranges do mean something. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of funny. Sniper saying 2024 Mustang GT base auto, great deal at $39,000 after discounts. Think about that for a minute. Let's say that $39,000 plus TT&L. Let's say you're out the door for 44, right? So what is that new Charger going to come in at? I'm not talking about the electric stuff because, boys, I ain't a player with the electrics. But what about this new standard output, high output thing that they're, going to give us? What's the price point of that thing going to be, and how is it really going to perform in the real world? I'm finding it curious. It is today, June the 4th, 2024. We're supposed to have had, keep in mind that the Ram is already out. It's been delivered. People are owning them and people are having problems with them. It's been delivered. Where is this 2025 Charger? Where is that? Where is the market? You guys have heard me say this over and over and over again. It almost sounds like I've got a nervous tick about it, but where the hell is it? I mean, this is starting to get on my nerves, and I'm not even, I don't even know what to say. I don't have a girl working that corner. I am very happy playing with my truck. A lot more than I thought I would too. I'll be real frank with you guys. The truck that I bought, I got a really steep discount on it. It's got bells and whistles that I've even turned off because they're annoying. I was about the truck, but I drove it and it kind of ran good. I mean, it ran better than the one that I had driven before that was a 2-wheel drive. So I bought it. A little bit too heavily optioned for my personal taste, but it ended up working out great. I really like this truck. I am not getting a Charger. I'm just going to tell you this right now. I'm not getting a Charger and I'm not getting a new Ram. But I am curious. I mean, I want it to do well. But damn, when you look at just the absolute landscape of what's going to be out on offer, and if they're already running into problems with that Hurricane 6, is there a reason why we haven't seen anything on this car? Have they pulled back maybe? They said, oh, wait, hold on. Maybe there's some things that they're finding that they needed to change. Just kind of curious on that. It makes you think. And I could be wrong. Those cars could come out. They could, we might not be seeing all of the, well, we're not seeing anything on them, but there could be some reasons that we're not seeing some of the cooler, updated or upgraded versions of that car. In terms of just the overall aesthetic. Maybe it comes out, it looks badass, and it does badass stuff. We can only hope, because so far marketing doesn't know what they're doing. Listen, I can't even watch the latest commercial on the Hornet, that Got Torque thing where it's some kid. Like, dude, look, this ain't a freaking Disney movie, all right? Children don't buy. It's just bad. It's just, it's just bad. I can't help it. It's just, oh my God, is that where we're heading? I hope not. Okay. So Dr. saying, looking at the F-150, but 18 to 20, as it seems the cylinder canceling design has reliability issues when going a bit overboard with boost. You think a Gen 3 versus a Gen 4 Coyote has an advantage? Well, there's a couple of things. The cylinder deactivation thing is going to be deactivated once you throw boost at it. So I wouldn't really sweat the details on that. However, you can get a Gen 3 for less. And if I'm buying a truck to hot rod, I'm probably going to go trips because, number one, they're going to be less expensive. Number two, it's a known quantity. Number three, it's got a little bit more aggressive camshaft profile, which will allow it to breathe a little bit better on the big end. It doesn't necessarily make more power naturally aspirated. So the bigger cams are a bit lost on the Gen 3, I would say, naturally aspirated. But when you boost at it, that's when it can make a big difference. But I will say that the Roush kit on a Gen 4 is a legit 700 horsepower. So there's that. Obviously, the Mustang doesn't suffer a lot of the trappings that the truck does, but that's an 800 horsepower kit. It's a warrantable 800 horsepower. So really, either way you go, I think you'll be in good shape. But again, if I'm building a truck as a pure hot rod, I'm probably going to go a Gen 3, unless somebody just handed me the keys to a Gen 4. I have a problem with the Gen 4. I've got one, and I love it. And by the way, the transmission protocol in the 4th gen trucks is really good. So at least there's that. I do also like the belt driven oil pump. I know a lot of folks get a little bit sketched out about that, but I know guys that literally use these trucks as work vehicles that have got a lot of miles on the Gen 4 and haven't had an ounce of problems with it. But if I'm throwing the kitchen sink at it, give me a Gen 3. Shane, working on my high compression NA LSX 427 6L 6L XOE 5th gen Camaro. Love the 5th gen. Built right now, looking for a C5 Vet to put a boosted LS3 in and a Mopar to put a boosted 5.7 after I put my 6.4. Nice. Man, there's times where I had a C5 Z06. There's times where I miss it, but ergonomically, that car sucked for me. Far and away. It did, but it did. I just could never get it right. That car is limited by. It's a bit limited. I even went as far as to shim up the column of the steering column. It was, oh man. Spent a lot of time behind the wheel of those cars. So I'm saying probably around 49 grand, maybe, talking about the Mustang, I guess. Itches in. Hello. Talking about the challenge or the Charger. Yeah, I don't know. Marco is in. Had a whip to the new Mustang GT Auto, $999 quarter mile for 10 grand. That's, I mean, it's one of the big problems with the Mustang is that you can get an inexpensive car, a base model car, a 315 geared car if you wanted to, throw boost at it, and as long as you keep that thing in good air, if you can keep it running 970 or slower, it's gonna be a real reliable car. I wouldn't push it to like 940 or 930. That's when you start running into some problems. And it's transmission related more than anything else. Mark is saying, build my truck. I know, right? So I'm saying, or build a 392 1500. You know what's funny about that? That idea with Buffy has crossed my mind. When that truck becomes available for purchase, which is probably be in about a year and a half, maybe. It might be time for a refresh. It's just the money. I don't, because it ain't cheap. Yeah, that's the other thing. Is none of this stuff comes for free, right? Don't we all wish it would? Oh, nice. Marco just did true duels with 2 thrush glass packs. Bet it sounds good. Nitro, thank you very much. I can research for a week and get a straight answer for you in 2 minutes. Thanks. Happy to anytime, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate the support. See if I need to dive a little bit deeper. Oh, on the F-150. Yeah. So here's the thing. If you decide to go F-150 and you're definitely throwing boost at it, throw the oil pump in it. It's going to have the better gears, and you'll get a new oil pump chain while you're at it. Again, the new ones have the belt driven. That pump in the Gen 4 is the high output pump, by the way. There are some hot rodded things in that engine, and they spin the piss out of that engine in the truck. They try to shift that thing at almost 6,800 RPM, which it does not need. In fact, I've picked up quite a bit of ET just by dropping the shift points in some of the earlier gears, but definitely do that and have that be the first thing that you do. And then whatever exhaust will fit underneath it that are long tubes, do that. And your tuner will take care of the rest. It's a really clean package. Shane saying, well, Ocean looks for a C6. I'm a really big guy. So Shane, if you're a big guy, dude, you are not going to want a fiber. My wife, so there, it's not here. My wife and I used to go sniping after Hellcats in my C5. And it was just an NA LS6. Big cam, though, good exhaust, Veraram intake. And I'd done the detent mod. It's a 6-speed car, so the detent mod to make it easier to shift had a MGW shifter in it. It's a really, really good example of that type of a car. But if you're a bigger dude, man, I do not recommend. The C6 is far and away better ergonomically. In fact, it'll give you, and this is not an exaggeration, it'll give you about, I'd say 2 or 3 inches at least in the hip area versus the C5. But again, Nitro, thank you very much, man. I do appreciate that a boatload. Um, oh, Marco, that's why I have 392 in my regular cab. Yeah, it's cash. But I was thinking about it for Buffy. I was like, man, if I were to do something like that, it would be a stock 392. I wouldn't even. It'd be stock 392 with some kind of a long tube header, or maybe even not even headers. Just stock 392 with manifold, the stock 392 headers, with a Y pipe, just nothing crazy, just something that'll get the thing down the road and be a fun truck. And I know that it would perform really, really, really well. It does not take much, and you wouldn't need any, converters and all that. Forget it. For my truck, it would just be what I would kind of had hoped that Dodge would have made from the factory. And if I ever get around to doing that, if it's in the budget, that's what I would do with Buff. But for anything else, I mean, it's so difficult to it's so difficult because the problem is that you have to have a mission statement, right? This is you have to have it in your head of how you want this vehicle to perform. And this is something that I was saying the other day when I was talking about when guys would come into the shop and they had these pie in the sky, just outlandish hopes and dreams, for the performance envelope of this vehicle that they're looking to put together. And what they wanted versus the results divided by the pocketbook. Yeah, I mean, you start to do that, you get some, you start doing the math in your head. You're like, dude, this ain't going to work out. And, but it's always about setting expectations. And anytime you get something, you've given up something to get it. And about the only time that doesn't really hold water, or the only exception to that rule is with exhaust modifications. If you're starting out with a bad set of manifolds, going to a better exhaust, provided that it doesn't create any heat issues, doesn't start cooking other components, stuff like that. As long as you're in the clear there, then that's it's win-win. But for the most part, it's all a trade-off, right? So I have made kind of a list in my head of what I would do with that truck. And I would always start like, okay, I'm going to go stock. Okay, well, no, it's going to get one of my cams long tubes. It's got to at least have one of my cams in it. And then I'm thinking, well, if it's got one of my cams in it, I'm really going to have to port the intake manifold probably anyway. It's going to get a truck intake manifold. Those already flow the best out of all of them. I can clean it up. Well, shit, if I've got the intake manifold off of it, why not just throw a 100 shot on it? Well, if I throw a 100 shot, I might as well put a $150 on it. Well, if I do a $150, I want to go wet. Well, if I go $150 and wet, then I'm going to want to run it. Obviously, it's going to be a sump tank. You see where this goes, and it gets stupid faster than, I'm like, oh, wait, time out. This isn't what I'm building. I'm building something that's supposed to just be fun. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it. So if I did end up doing something with that truck, it would be car block 392, probably one of my baby cams in it, just to give it a little bit of something extra. Or not. The stock cam is not a bad cam in that setup. It's real snappy. Although my sniper cam would do really well in a pickup truck with a stock converter. Never mind. But the mentality, that's what we all want to do. We always want a little bit more, but I've discovered over years and years and years of playing with stuff like this is that anytime you do get something on the big end, you've almost always given up something down low. And that's what makes them a lot of fun. And that's why I like the Coyote stuff, because in a way you can kind of have your cake and eat it with the chem phasing that is in these trucks. I mean, it just makes so much torque down low. I mean, it feels like that engine is about 2 liters bigger than it really is. And so I like that. And torque will spoil you. And that's another thing. If you build something that's real torquey and extremely snappy just right off the initial hit of the throttle, that will make up more for just that normal everyday driving aspect. I get it that horsepower wins the race, if you will, but I don't know. I'll put it to you like this. I never put one of my cams in my SRT. And the reason why I didn't is because I was doing really well with the stock cam and I didn't want to mess it up. So I'm saying a 392 1500 would fix that longing for a scat pack again, but you'll have it in a truck. That is true. And I am more of a truck guy than I am a car guy. Sarge says, just plan for it and make a 392 1500, build the way you want it. It'll be the only truck you'll ever need. I mean, the V8 is going away, which is true. And what better way to go out than with a bang by building? Yeah. X is asking, if I give you $60,000 for a fun car and $15,000 for mods, what would I build? Damn. You know what I would build? I'll tell you what I would build. I would go to my local Ford store. I would buy a crew cab F-150. Not go crazy with options, just an XLT, kind of a base model XLT with a center console, just because it would make it nice. Don't get a 4-wheel drive, get a 2-wheel drive, and I'd put a blower on it. And I'd have enough money to probably buy a used motorcycle to throw in the bed of the thing, or at least a trailer. And the reason why I say that is because or that would be my first route, because you could actually do a lot with that vehicle. The other route you could go is $60,000 for a fun car, and $15,000 for more mods. The $15,000 is going to be spent on boost, and the $60,000, I mean, pretty much anything modern, if you're buying it new, would be open for discussion at that point. But I would have to lower the price of the vehicle down to $30,000 and bump up the mods list to about $30,000 or 40, or 30 or 40 grand to really build something nasty fast. And then in that case, I find a regular cab short bed 4-wheel drive F-150, and do a turbo boost build on it. And it would be all over but the crying for all but the absolute fastest stuff on the street, because that would at least also cover you for a built transmission, any axles that you might need, suspension work. And if you can pick up a cheap F-150, for deep down in the weeds in terms of money, numbers, I mean, you can build something that'll run, I'll put it to like this. You'll build something that'll run mid to low 9s on the street. And that's where things get really spooky. Now, you can also do the same thing with LS stuff. I get that. But when it comes to throwing boost at something, it's real hard to beat the Coyotes. I know that here in Texas, Coyote trucks and LS trucks, you never take for granted that you're racing a truck, because out in my neck of the woods, some of the nastiest stuff on the street are pickup trucks. Sorry, 392 1500. Summertime, did I talk to Paul about all the obscure answers he received from Dodge on his Demon 170 questions? So I had talked to Paul about that a little bit ago. He was working on getting answers, and we were talking. He hadn't received any answers back from them yet. And I talked to him specifically about the issues that he ran into and where my head is at when it comes to long-term use of E85, how to break in the engine properly, and how and when, or at least not how, but when to change the oil. And it's not just me saying that. That's my statements are not just my own. They carry the weight of Ford Motor Company behind it. I mean, this is the protocol that Ford recommends for their flex fuel vehicles. So for the answers that he got, they do not walk in lockstep with the doctrine that I have been handed over the years. Matter of fact, oh gosh, let me think how long this was. This was probably somewhere 2000 and no, wouldn't have been that. 2012. I ended up kind of getting into a bit of a deep dive with E85 learning. That's about the time this stuff really started to hit. I put it to you like this. When the E85 thing really started to take off, I was in the dark on it. I was clueless to it. Keep in mind that around 2008, 2009, I was in Northern California and my whole world revolved around motorcycles. That was it. So corn wasn't really anything I was concerned with. But anyway, as I started to dive into it a little bit, I started picking up on it in the import guys that were using it. And thought it was kind of interesting, thought it was pretty neat. And again, the more I dove into it, I was like, well, wait a minute, that's alcohol. Had a little bit of knowledge just from conversations that I had with people back in the day with drag race stuff running on alcohol and how it would dilute the oil. And so the more I dove into it, I started looking at Ford because, I had a flex fuel truck, never even thought about it. And so I started diving into it, and that's when I saw the protocol, talked to a couple of racer guys that I knew, talked to a couple of engineers that I knew, talked to some of the aviation guys that I knew, and they're like, yeah, any of the ethanol stuff can be bad news. And so from there, I just kind of dorked out on it, and there you go. But anyway, that's why I could just rattle that stuff off the top of my head, is because I took this deep dive into E85 and long-term use, and why it's not necessarily a good idea to try to use it on older vehicles, why it's better to use it on newer vehicles depending on how the engine is built. There's just a lot that goes into this kind of stuff. So one thing I will say, and it goes back to this whole E85 argument. Remember, we were talking, somebody asked the question, what's the difference in the blocks between the Red-Eye Demon platform cars, which is any of the Demons and any of the Red-Eye cars, and a regular Hellcat, or anything really for that matter that's not running a forged piston? Guys, you have to remember that, and this is something that I didn't really get too deep in the weeds on, and this is something that unfortunately the people at Stellantis didn't really convey with the Demon 170 guys. A lot of the Demon 170 guys will run those cars fairly cool when they make the hit. That's a bit of a problem if you've got forged pistons. Forged pistons grow more or less. They shrink when they grow more when they're hot. And it takes them a hot minute to get to temp. So what happens if your pistons, just micro smaller? Well, now it's not that it really matters, but you're not stretching the piston rings as much. Maybe it doesn't have as much tension. And you go to hit this thing onto the cylinder bores. So you hit this thing with a bunch of cylinder pressure, more fuel and more busted product gets past the rings and goes into the oil sump, or at least into the crankcase. It's not like it's got a hole in every piston and you're literally feeding it, but it's a significantly higher amount, which is not necessarily good. It's one of the main reasons why I think when Paul in that video, he's talking about, well, they want you to look at oil quality. Well, there's no way for you to tell what the oil quality is. Do you smell it to make sure it doesn't smell like ethanol? Are you looking for something in the oil? There's not enough oil on the dipstick to send that to Blackstone. So there's a lot that there's a lot that he was told that it was obvious to any casual observer that it was not rooted in the realities of racing. Like the advice that was given was not from the mouth of a racer, somebody that had been there and done it. It was from somebody that really does not know what the fuck they're talking about. Okay. They don't. I will say this, they're saying we'll change it every 3,000 miles. Okay. And I need there to be an understanding of what 3,000 miles is in Demon speak. And then to change it more often than 3,000 miles if you're taking it to the track, say every 1,500 miles. Okay, so there is a massive difference between somebody trailering their car to the track, firing it up, barely at operating temperature, going watt, make a hit, coming down the return road and shutting it off, versus somebody that drives the car to the track, makes a few hits really while it's still kind of hot, and then drives it home. That oil, after any amount of time for the former scenario, is going to be wrecked by comparison to the other oil for the same duration. And the same number of passes, by the way. So let's say somebody gets to the track, they make 6 hits, and then they drive it home, versus they trailer the car to the track, make 6 hits, and then trailer it, and that's it. The act of driving that car home is going to help to distill any ethanol out of that oil. As you're driving it, the oil temperature goes up. The latent temperature of vaporization is much, much lower for the alcohol as you would imagine. It distills out of the oil, and you don't have contaminated oil anymore. Obviously, increasing your oil quality. I don't know how to put it any other way other than to say that, in my opinion, personal opinion, it is gross negligence on the part of whoever gave the advice to Racer X to not to be in a position, and maybe it's not even their fault, but it's gross negligence on the part of some entity to put somebody in a position to speak to somebody in this scenario with such little information on board as to garner a sophisticated conversation about the different scenarios, much less the obvious reasons, the why behind the what and everything else. It was so glossed over. And these people are paying so much money for this car, and they're flying the flag so high. It's dismissive to me. And that's the part that bothers me the most, I guess. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I'm saying, folks, hit the like button. Yes, hit the like. And if it's your first time, consider some. Actually makes a huge difference for the channel. So I'm saying, it seems like the OG Demon is a more practical car than the Demon 170. I mean, I don't recall ever having to do oil changes every 5 minutes on a 2018 Demon. Well, the Demon's a great car, man. The only thing that sucks about the Demon is that the 170 was released. The Red Eye, the Super Stock, the Demon, I like all of them. They're such happy cars. And with just a little bit of a mild tune on them, they are so, so sweet. Eric Zan, what's up, Eric? Good evening, everyone, and friends, and B Mason, friend, Sovereign Knight, friend. Hello, Eric. Good to see you, buddy. Eric's hanging out with the crew. Making sure I don't skip anybody, y'all. Shane saying a twin turbo 1320 Scat Challenger, maybe. There's a lot of money in that sentence right there, or that question. Um, it's not economically feasible. I mean, I'll put it like this: if I stumbled across a Scat Pack and I know a company that's currently developing a really good turbo kit for the Challengers, and even if I got one of those for free, remember, guys, I would still have to do an HP90 swap on the car. It's a fact of the matter. That's HP90 swap and the drive shaft to go along with it. Without that transmission, it is not worth it to get that much power or to have that level of power potential in one of those cars, because you will thrag that transmission. I promise you. Sovereign say, just dreading turning 50. Don't dread turning 50. Dread not turning 50. Oh, Sovereign. Yeah, nobody. I mean, you don't have to worry about anything with a Demon. I'm telling you, you just put gasoline in it and drive it. Just saying. Of all the cars that I've ever driven, the Demon was the happiest, was the most fun, was the I'm telling you, it's just a happy car. That's it. I mean, it's fast, but it's not fast. You know, it wouldn't blow your mind to drive a Demon. You'd be surprised how like, you know, it's real softly sprung. It's just a neat, happy car. Oh, Eric, yeah, talking about the new Demon 170, that all those engines should have been equipped with a dry sump. Plus, they're having major problems with cracked engine blocks. They're having problems with cracked engine blocks. That's a big issue. It's a casting issue. It wouldn't be because they can't handle the power. But you're right about the dry sump. Although a lot of guys are running the normal oiling system in, you know, low 8, high 7-second cars without any issues. It's not just that. There are other issues at play here. I hate to say it, but these other issues may not have been helped by a dry sump. Nitro saying, so if you're running corn at the strip, you say 180 is a good safe temperature for thermal expansion on a forged piston, or would you depend on the alloy it's made from? So here's what I would suggest. I would say that make sure that your water temperature is at least at 160 degrees. And I would say that I would want it to have been at 160 degrees for at least a couple of minutes. In other words, you know, let the thing run, let the thing get to temperature, and then shut it off. Let it get to like 160, 170 degrees and kill it. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to drag something off the trailer, fire it up, get it to the stage, do a burnout, and then go hit it down the track. There's guys that have done it. I mean, look, because you run into two problems. One is the forged piston thing with corn, but the other one is your oil isn't to temperature yet. And guys will go, well, it's going to make more power with the colder temps. Sort of, but that also has, you want to make sure that the oil can flow and get to everything in the right way. Modern oils, it's not as critical that the oil temp is up to say 120, 130 degrees, but my number has always been about 20. So 120 and 160 will get you a full pass. If I'm at anything less than 120 on oil temp, I don't like making a full hit. Anything less than 130 degrees engine temp, I typically won't make a full hit. And forged motors, I would prefer to see them around 100, dead minimum 150, but I'd prefer to see 160. I just want to see it over 150 for an extended period of time. That's why I always say 160. If you get that number in your head, it'll keep you from trying to cheat it down. So I'm saying, honestly, I think Stellantis couldn't care less about the Demon 170. Very true. They're saying, Sovereign, don't feel bad. I'm 53. My man. So, well, the Demon 2018 Demon owners have nothing to be upset about now. The Demon 170. No. It's funny. So there's a lot of Demon, like just OG Demon owners that are going, car didn't seem so bad now after all. Oh, goodness. You know, not that I've been keeping up with it. I guess I should. But is anybody running that car on 93 octane just to see what they can really get out of this thing on normal people gasoline? I mean, inquiring minds would like to know anyway, I guess. Hold on, let me guess. 960 or 970, right? Simon's hanging out with Eric. So I'm saying, hell, I had a blast just sitting in a 2018 Demon for a whole 3 minutes. I tell you what, what's funny is you get used to. I always say I got stuck with that one. That was a bit of a development car. But I was the first Demon to run a 9-second pass at HRP, which I thought was kind of neat. But I got, this is kind of funny. I got to tell you, it was, God, there's part of me that just sort of wishes I would have bought a Demon, but maybe one. So I'm saying cold oil equals thicker viscosity, needs to warm up to flow easier. Absolutely. Modern oils actually flow pretty good. There's two measurements that they'll use to kind of judge a viscosity index from, and that's at 40 degrees, which is 40 degrees centigrade, which is 100 degrees in freedom units. And then at 100, which is 100 degrees centigrade, which is 212 degrees. And the 212 is used because that's the boiling point of water. And then 100 degrees, it's just a nice round number. And you'd be surprised how well it does flow even at 100 degrees. But these modern oils are, it's witchcraft in a bottle as far as I'm concerned. The way that they can make that stuff operate at the different temperatures is really cool. Eric's hanging out with Sovereign. And absolutely, the Dodge engineers should have worked out all those issues with the Demon 170s, especially because that car was designed for drag racing. Yep. Yeah, and the funny thing is not like seriously, one of the funny things about that is it's been done for so long by so many people. How can you possibly screw this up? They're spotting you the bread and the ham, dude. You can kind of see how this goes together, right? There's so many people that have been running so many fast numbers with these cars for so long, and they're doing it. These are cottage industry guys. They don't have the entire weight of a corporation backing them up. I get it. You have to have it because, there's so much more testing and all this other stuff. But from the look of it, I don't see it really. I get the OS is different and it works with the 6th E85, but you can get that in the aftermarket. But it doesn't really tie into timing, and I get all of that. I think you see where I'm going with this. It's just it's frustrating when the aftermarket has been doing something for a long time, and then the OE decides to try to play a little bit, and they can't seem to get it right. And that, I don't understand how they can't get it right. All you got to do is call up any of us that have been in the business and go, hey, we need consultants on this. You go, okay, you do this, that, this, that, this, that, and this is what's been working for the last 600 passes in this car. Let her rip. But you just didn't get that. But again, and the other thing, I can't let this go. To me, it is such, like, why, how, these are not racers. These are not people that are into this type of a thing. And when I say this type of a thing, I mean performance, the lifestyle. They're not, these are engineers, and they're engineers by trade. They're not car guys by trade. And so that's one of the reasons why when I see the direction that Stellantis and, well, right now Stellantis is going, it's just, can I ask you a question? If you're talking about Stellantis as a company and you're seeing the kind of ass kicking that you're being dealt by Ford Motor Company right now, just in general, what you've got, at some point you need to change your game plan, right? I mean, it's like Stellantis is blocking every punch with their face. This cannot be sustainable. And so the more I look at Stellantis, the more I just get the idea that they're going to axe murder the brand of Dodge. And that is horrible to even contemplate. But, you know, I mean, you're going to send everybody back into the loving arms of Ford, who were making hot rods, legendary hot rods, by the way, when they had zero competition in the marketplace. So we'll see how it shapes up. Sorry, that's the 2018 Demon just makes more sense. And they could very well be wearing well, they're wearing blinders maybe, but I think that they are following a certain doctrine. I think that's more to the point. Well, you know, Sovereign, if the European mentality is not necessarily bad, but, and you can do it with V8s. I mean, Europeans have V8s. My problem is that they're taking the wrong part of Europe. And the sad thing about it, I get why I understand why there is a drive and a want for the 3-liter. It's a global thing. In some countries, you're taxed much heavier on engines that are larger than 3 liters. And so this is a global play, and okay, whatever, fine. But I just don't know where that engine plays globally. Is there a global platform for the Hurricane Inline 6? Is there really? That's what you'll be sold, is that, well, the Hurricane is a global platform engine, and we have to make sure that we maintain, it starts to turn into Charlie Brown's teacher in the background. I got to ask, all right, where else are you building this thing? Who else is going to get a piece of this? You know? So, I don't know. It's kind of a weird deal. So I'm saying, yeah, but the whole muscle thing is an American concept, if I'm not mistaken. It is, but it is sort of, but it depends on how you define muscle. I mean, you got Aussies who were basically, it was just back in the day, it was America South. It's a little different now. Now they're Canada South. But you had the Aussies, the Canadians at one point in time, but they don't build their own cars. But, you know, pretty much anywhere that could accommodate a V8, if they could stick it in a car, that was a muscle car one way or another. It didn't matter how many doors it had. But muscle came in different flavors. And the thing is, the V8 worked for American cars because, quite frankly, it was just an easy way to get more power into some of these cars. And all of that started getting really important around 32, when the first Ford V8 started hitting. I remember my grandmother talking about, and she was young back, very young, but she remembers how much of an impact having that flathead V8 meant if you had a coupe. I mean, it was kind of a cool thing. And then later, after the war, when guys were coming back and they wanted a thrill, that's what they were migrating to, those bigger engines, because we had just bigger cars. We had more land to cover, so hence the muscle car is born somehow or another. But I guess the point of this is, would you consider, okay, would you consider a Supra a muscle car? And I mean a Mark IV Supra. Or you can say the latest Supra, I guess. I mean, front engine, rear drive, it's got the horsepower, it's got the torque. Is that a muscle car? No. Most people will refer to muscle cars as something with a V8 and probably maybe two-door only, but sometimes I think that kind of gets a little bit lost in the wash. There was in Australia a Hemi 6-cylinder. It's an inline 6 that would get hot rodded, and that was like six-cylinder muscle car, but only because they played it that way. It kind of got a free pass, if you will. But the reality is, to be a muscle car, you got to have a V8, right? But what else makes the muscle car? I mean, a Mustang is not a muscle car. It's a pony car. It's a step down, if you will, at least in terms of size. But for me, a muscle car, the thing that comes to mind is a V8. You'll never hear me think, oh, 6-cylinder, that's a muscle car. No, doesn't mean you can't make all the power in the world. Or mean you can't make it all with a 6. You can, absolutely you can. But it's about it's more about the image. It's more about the experience of it. It's so much more than that. Oh, sorry, we're saying, yeah, the V8 sound for sure. Sorry, yeah, Supra, yeah, it's a sports car. You're serious saying, have you not seen the BMW M4 G80? Oh, dude. So, yeah, well, and that's the thing. So, okay, so to your point, whoa, hang on a second. Hang on. So let's talk about the M4. Okay, 6-cylinder, badass car, right? The Supra falls into that line also, in a way. Oh, the M4 is sick to death, don't get me wrong, but everything that's out there with a 6-cylinder that comes from the factory with a turbo, you can make absolutely haul ass. So it doesn't matter to me. Okay, muscle car, you almost have to say naturally aspirated only for a muscle car. Yeah, the Hellcat is a muscle car, but it's more of a super muscle car in a way. If it's coming to the party with boost, the idea with a muscle car is that this big, burly, naturally aspirated V8, you tip into the throttle and it's pushing you with torque. It's not about, in fact, muscle cars really shouldn't be in the conversation when it comes to ETs and quarter mile times. And the reason why I say that is because it's more about driving experience. Muscle car rarely is very fast. But anything modify, you make anything go fast. But I guess fast is a relative statement. But yeah, I mean, have you not seen the M4? Yeah. Have you not seen the Supra? Have you not seen the GTR? Have you not seen any other car with a turbo from the factory that can't be made to run crazy fast numbers? In fact, I'll take that a step further. We're talking about the Charger in this, talking about the M4 to go along with it. Think about this. Consider this. What happens if you get a standard output? Let's talk about two-wheel drive for two-wheel drive here. I don't want to hear about the all-wheel drive shit right now. And you put that car up against an M4. You can't tune the Hurricane 6, not yet anyway. And you're going to have to come to that with, well, piggyback systems. What happens when that car can't run? And talking 950s, I don't even care about a 950 number. Let's talk about 10-0 flat, 10 O's, okay? For two reasons. One, it's a more realistic outcome. And two, it doesn't matter anymore when it comes to numbers, when the challenge or the Charger won't be able to cover those numbers at all. So you can say, okay, well, 10-0, 950. Okay, I'll tell you 11-0 and the thing won't cover it. And that's the problem that I have. If you are going to introduce a car like that onto the world in the shadow of the M4, the Supra, and just go down the list of whatever cars you want to pick, that's when you look at it and you go, oh shit, this isn't the same game. We're not the same. And that's what I'm afraid people are going to find out about. Oh, Sovereign, yeah, like a bodybuilder. Very true. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, the Conquest. Love the Conquest. That's what I was hoping they were going to release. If it would have been up to yours truly, it wouldn't have been the Charger. I'm sick of that name, by the way. Let me just go on record as saying I wouldn't buy a Charger just because it's a Charger. And it has nothing to, I don't have a problem with the current generation of Chargers. But we need, if you're going to keep nostalgia baiting, guys, nostalgia bait the Cold War kids like me, you call that thing a Conquest, make it small, put the Hurricane in it, put a manual transmission option available for it, give me an all-wheel drive and automatic only, fine, whatever, drag race thing. Give me something like the Conquest, and I'm like, here, take all my monies, give me all those cars. I want that. And if they would have done that, you can put money, it is money in the bank that I would have had one sitting in the shop ready to go. And I mean, black on black, it would have been sickening, that car. Because that's the Conquest that I drove for about, oh God, I was still in high school. And I loved that car. And it put such a strong impression in me. You know, the Conquest versus the Mustang GT. There was, you know, the old school muscle is still around on some levels then. So, I mean, they're just so, it has been so poorly handled that, I mean, this, for a lot of us, this was writing itself. When we found out about the Hurricane 6 being offered, there were a host of us that were just absolutely salivating over the concept of a new Conquest or Starion. Bring back DSM names. It doesn't matter which one you pick. Bring back the Talon. You could have had the Conquest and the Talon. The Conquest for the state output two-wheel drive, the Talon for the all-wheel drive. Because the Talon back in the day used to put in hella work on old school muscle cars. And I mean, it was never a given that you're going to beat that car on the big end either. There were plenty of solid 11-second Talons running around back in an era where 11-second cars were fast. And dude, I'm telling you, so they missed. It's like, you can't even say that they missed the boat. They didn't even know that there was a boat to miss. And this, it's just, oh, it's so embarrassing. Oh, it's embarrassing. But the name Charger, I am sick of it. I'm sick of stop using a legacy name on this car that has nothing to do with the Charger itself. I think that is a fail. That is a failure that, I mean, I'm not saying somebody should be fired over it. This is a re-education opportunity. It does kind of look like a Daytona. The Eagle Talon all-wheel drive. The interior of those cars was pretty slick too. The tunes to be unlocked. Yeah, that's. Ugh. Well, guys, hey, I just found, I'm looking right here. We're over an hour, so I got to wrap it up. Guys, listen, I thank each and every one of y'all. Could not do this without you. Oh, sorry. Almost lost the feed here. Dang, what is going on with my computer here? But yeah, I just, it's kind of crazy when you think about where that car could be. Where is it anyway? Where's the marketing? And anyway, talk about a missed opportunity. Anyway, Nitro, thank you so very much, buddy. I appreciate the support. But with that, guys, I got to wrap it up. Listen, guys, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they get way more than you know. And with that, now it's a wrap. Adios.